I'm Jill Savage, joined as always by editor-in-chief Matthew Peterson.
Yeah, today's topic is basically a lot of people have effed around over the years, and who is actually going to find out?
Well, Chris Bedford is our D.C. politics editor. Who's going to find out, Chris? Come on.
We're on the case. We're on it.
We are, because we have a flood of newly declassified documents this week that is pointing to a coordinated effort by Obama and Hillary and Clapper, Comey, Rice, Kerry, Brennan. The list goes on. They're all trying to stage a coup against President Trump, is what we found out. But without real accountability, without someone actually going to jail, Matt, does any of this matter, right? Like we're talking about this, but if we don't have consequences, does any of it matter?
I think that if there aren't legal consequences that are pursued to the full extent of the law, then you fail to establish the rule of law, and you fail to establish a precedent that this can't happen again and keep happening as these agencies run amok. That said, I think there are other consequences I've talked about in the show that could include, just taking over the narrative so that most people understand what happened in the country and are forced to admit it. But even the best way to do that is to actually prosecute someone.
Well, there are rules for us and there are rules for the elites, Chris. We've known this for a long time. Will the elites actually face consequences here?
So I think that they're going to try and figure that out. I think the person who should be most worried right now is Brennan. I think President Barack Obama is probably going to be able to skate a little bit right now. Barack Obama is going to rely on the fact that he's the president, that it'd be too disruptive, despite the fact that he clearly seemed to have ordered this, and his lieutenants are going to go down. I think that Brennan is going to be in trouble, not simply for perjury, along with Comey, but possibly more. He certainly this misuse of power, but that's going to end up at the end of the day with the Department of Justice. Of all of the people in trouble right now, he's the target.
Well, we see just, the leftists are emboldened by this lack of consequences. We go through this all the time, Matt. Like it's almost annoying on the right when you look at just the way that the left plays the game, for lack of a better term, and the way that the right goes about it.
Yeah, and this has been going on for a long, long time where the right really doesn't have anything akin to lawfare. It would turn a blind eye almost as if it was the polite thing to do when their political opponents were doing all kinds of shady things. And when you think about what we've seen over the last 20 plus years, really, just think about the Clinton Foundation. That was a lot of money. You're talking about tens and tens of millions of dollars, much of which came from Russia. Right into the foundation. They took, $50-60 million from Russian interests. When you think about Hillary's email scandal, which the left made fun of as if it wasn't a big deal that you had someone at that level of power with a private server doing something that most normal people would never even think of doing, with a lot of sensitive email. When you think of Benghazi, we're not supposed to mention that, but however, without any conspiracy, it was a complete cluster. It was a complete disaster for U.S. foreign policy. When you think of what happened to that country, when you think of what happened to Libya, Clinton also had a pardon for cash scandal, right? This is ridiculous. It's gone on for a long time. So people are really hungry for good reason. Because they want to see some kind of justice obtained at the highest levels. Yeah,
you could go through the Mar-a-Lago raid. You could go through all the J6ers that have been locked up. Bannon and Navarro were thrown in jail, Chris. There are so many different instances that at what point is this tide going to shift?
It is shifting. It's shifted right now. The DOJ, the Trump DOJ and the ODNI and the administration is by far the most serious domestic policy shop that I have seen in my lifetime or read about in modern times, at least from the American right. You do see this sort of operation often, operations like Lyndon B. Johnson's. Bill Clinton was rumored, never proven to have a rather efficient operation when needed. For example, back in the day, they went after the Kochs really hard for getting in the way of Hillary Care, which is a precursor of Obamacare. They would go after people and target them. It's kind of, the Republicans have just let it, it's like turn the other cheek. And they focused on foreign policy, and they focused on tax cuts for their corporate friends, and they focused on outsourcing American jobs to make people on Wall Street richer. If you look back A lot of the 90s and 2000s Republicans were basically everything that the left said they were. They were not serving the actual interests of this country. And it was sort of a uniparty thing. But this administration has shifted all of that, particularly in its second term, when it had 4 years to lick its wounds, figure out what it had done wrong, figure out who had messed with it, who'd undermined it. And now they're coming back and taking names. I mean, we can't, maybe we're going to get to this later in the show, but we cannot understate how massive this revelation is and what damage it's about to undo that's come from Tulsi Gabbard, ODNI, and the White House.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and get to it. It's your Beltway brief that is actually out right now. It's the 9th anniversary of Russiagate, right? I can't believe that we've been going through almost a decade of this, Chris. Like, just take us through just the crazy, nearly long decade that we have had dealing with this.
So we had to have an emergency press conference and issue a Thursday afternoon Beltway brief when I suddenly realized that today was the anniversary, 9 years, like you said, of July 24th, 2016. Robbie Mook went on the air and said, well, we found out that the Russians have hacked the DNC, and they did that because they want Donald Trump to win the presidency. I mean, that was the first claim that came out. Since that had been something that had been cooking up for some time in the Hillary Clinton campaign. They've been working on a dossier. They had a plan to try and tie Trump to the Russians and do some kind of collusion, but that was the beginning. And we've dealt with this for 9 years. And remember, if you think back, at first, people just kind of listened to it. They thought, well, the FBI are good guys. The CIA aren't going to just try and take down an American president or a candidate. They're going to play by the rules. They're not even allowed to operate domestically. There was all these different things that we just assumed. A lot of people did, not everyone. Republican politicians certainly assumed it. You've seen massive changes in people like Senator Marco Rubio, for example, and their willingness to question and immediately push back against what the IC is saying. And by the way, if you look through this report, I was just talking with Sarah about this. It actually turns out that the CIA had no idea who hacked the DNC. They knew that the Russians had the emails. They knew that. That's how they got information about Hillary Clinton's health and other things, but they had no idea who'd actually done it. So even that was totally a stretch. But what we've learned over the last couple of days in these releases, if you pour through these files, is that Vladimir Putin didn't want Donald Trump to win. Now, that is the central point. Now, over these last 9 years, I've had to wake up at 5, and me and thousands of other people, other reporters, other pundits, other staffers, other investigators, other judges, other politicians, senators, congressmen, presidents, lawyers, have spent millions of hours pouring through the incredibly complicated web of details in these allegations and every plot twist. I mean, the names, I was just going through some of the names that I've worked with. I mean, you've got Carter Page, remember him? You got Stephen Halper, you've got Christopher Steele, George Papadopoulos, Paul Manafort, Sergei Kislyak, you got Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, remember her? Konstantin, you got Mueller, of course, you got Schiff, you've got Andrew McCabe, you've got Rod Rosenstein, Glenn Simpson, Alexander Downer, Michael Horowitz, James Clapper, John Brennan, James Comey, you got Michael Flynn, you've got Rick Gates, you've got Kevin Kleinsmith. And so if you forget for a second who Kevin Kleinsmith is, he's the guy behind the whole Carter Page thing. What was the Carter Page thing? He was supposedly a Russian asset, somebody who was doing sneaky Russian meetings to help the Trump campaign. Where it later turned out he was a CIA asset. That was known. The CIA said, don't worry about it. We told him to meet with these people. He comes back and he debriefs us. Kleinsmith went in and deleted that from the investigation, charged him as being a Russian spy, spread that whole lie. And then when he actually got busted for it and pleaded guilty to it, he got probation. This is like something out of The Departed. And the judge who gave him probation was Judge Boasberg, the DC scumbag who's still targeting Donald Trump. But this is 9 years of now I've forgotten more than I currently know about what's gone on with this. And every time people got closer to the truth and would discover something like Carter Page was framed, none of that was ever true. Stephen Halper, the professor, was a bad guy. The ambassador from Australia who was feeding information through the British embassy to the United States was a bad guy. By the time you get to that, they've just kicked more dirt in the air. They've muddied up the narrative. It's more difficult to actually figure out, and they're still trying to do it right now. But all of that comes down to the whole reason for everything was that Vladimir Putin wanted Donald Trump to be the president. a narrative that never actually really made sense, but we had to believe it, and you believe it just like apparently CO2 is going to kill us all. This is the core thing. Without it, there's no investigation. There's no intelligence. There's no impeachment. People went to prison over this. They ended up looking into Paul Manafort and other people and finding different FARA violations and putting him in prison. They raided Roger Stone's house on TV. They tipped off CNN. They destroyed lives. They destroyed livelihoods. They impeached the president. They tried to take him down again. They sucked the oxygen out of the entire country. They undermined the public's trust in every aspect of this process, in the intelligence community, in law and order, in the news media, and all of it was based on this lie. And if you look at the press conference, and you read the Washington Post today, you read the Associated Press today, or you watch CNN's Caitlin Collins yesterday, you see people saying, a bipartisan committee in 2017 said that there was meddling. Not collusion, but meddling. But that doesn't matter. We know that Putin sent out memes, stupid memes. Facebook memes don't change elections. That's another stupid thing that people repeat all the time. They don't do that. No one's arguing about meddling. You can't kick dirt in the air this time. You can't muddy the waters. You can't make it so we can't see. Putin didn't want Trump to win, and they knew it. They knew it. Obama knew it. Brennan knew it, and they took it out of the report, and they went forward with it anyways, and everything else are details to intentionally confuse and make it seem too complicated for people to understand, like it's some kind of ugly modern art masterpiece masquerading as beautiful art. The whole thing is a fraud, and now we know it, and we can move on, and there's nothing that they can squeal. But it actually means that will change any of what they did to this country, and it's destroyed them. It's truly destroyed the public's trust in them. It's destroyed the public's trust in the courts in a lot of ways. It's made people question the judges. It's destroyed the public trust in the media. And it is so well deserved. But at the same time, to Matt's point, that's a dangerous place for a country to be when your elites have turned on it and the public know it.
So well said. I mean, they destroyed themselves over this, and that is something that everyone out there can take comfort in, especially now that the truth is out. You know, I have this flood of memories right now. I had things I wanted to say, but when you mention these names, I mean, you know, Paul Manafort, you know, the campaign manager for a hot second for Trump, they put him away for stuff that the Podestas and everyone else in D.C. were doing all the time. And remember when the attention turned to Podesta's consulting firm, and then they just like closed it down in a day. Everyone had to leave because they knew, you know, I mean, it's crazy. But what I want to point out here quickly for the audience is what you're describing is so much of this was international at first, because that has to be the way legally that the intelligence agencies can get involved at all. And so what's troubling about this looking back is how connected a lot of these intelligence agencies are throughout the world. So you got the guy from Australia, you have shady stuff going on in the UK, and they're feeding information on purpose to create a narrative so that U.S. intelligence has an excuse to then move forward. And that is such a dangerous precedent, but we've seen it happen time and time again, and nowhere in the bigger picture than in Russiagate itself.
Well, it's Christmas in July. Bedford laid out the entire naughty list for Santa Claus for this year. But, you know, I keep saying all I want for Christmas is perp walks, and our good buddy Steve Deace put on X that prison or it didn't count.